Melissa, I appreciate your time. I know that you have expended a great deal of effort in the past and that you continue to do so for the residents of the town of Guilderland and surrounding communities in the village of Altamont with your reporting and your constant vigilance on a whole variety of issues. So thank you for taking the time to have a discussion with me this evening. I've been fortunate. I feel quite blessed and honored and privileged to have served the residents of the town of Gilland for several years in different capacities. I first began working with the town and for the town as an assistant town attorney, counsel to the planning board. And I served in that capacity for approximately 6 years, and then had an opportunity to expand and diversify my opportunities to be a public servant, and chose to run for public office as a member of the town board. Um, I very much appreciate the opportunity to serve the residents of the town. I feel privileged to do so, and I am quite humbled by the fact that they have entrusted me with part of the decision making process that's important to all residents of the town. The reason why I serve is because I feel that I have something to contribute to our town. I am particularly interested in our town, having resided here for numerous years. I was not born, or nor was I raised, so to speak, or grew up in the town of Gilland, but I came here to attend law school many years ago, and lived in the Weatherfield area throughout my law school years. And upon graduating law school, I had a younger relative who was in law school and needed a roommate. So she lived in the city of Albany, and I moved in with her for approximately 2 years. And upon her graduation from law school and her location outside of the state, I chose to move back to the town of Gilliland and purchased the home in which I've been residing for just about 30 years. Um, it's important for me to uh, to help the town because I have a great deal of time and energy and efforts that have been invested in our town. I've lived here for many years. I believe that I can contribute, and I think I have a proclivity to listen to people, to try to help them in their concerns. And I think that our town government is well designed to do that. That we have many opportunities to listen to the residents, to try to understand their concerns, and to help resolve issues and problems that may face them.
Great. Can you now tell us, as you look back to 2006, over those years, what things were you most proud of having accomplished on the town board?
I'm particularly proud of the fact that our government here in the town, and I think that I've been an essential part of that throughout those years, is a very open and transparent and accessible government. The key to public stewardship, the key to helping people is to understand their concerns and their questions. And it's absolutely essential that you have an open and free and accessible line of communication. And I know that that might not sell a lot of perhaps publications or newspapers when you very generally state that you're part of an open and transparent and accessible government. But it's very important, and it's the hallmark of our government in Guilderland. For example, we televise all of our town board meetings, all of our zoning board meetings, all of our planning board meetings. We have our town budget on the website. We have, over the last horrific, shall we say, 14 or 16 months of this pandemic, we've had our supervisor, Peter Barber, provide the residents with updates, daily updates regarding the coronavirus. Those are absolutely essential to maintain a important line of communication between the residents and those individuals who are sworn to uphold the public integrity and the public trust and to serve the residents. So I think that that's one of our greatest accomplishments. I think that we've done a remarkable job on holding the line on taxes. The town of Guilderland has the lowest town tax rate in all of Albany County. That's commendable. And yet our services that we provide our residents don't suffer. We relatively recently took over the Westmere Fire, Westmere
EMS, the EMS.
Yes, not the fire department, EMS. And none of us had the vision when we did that to expect that we would be engulfed in a global pandemic. But as fortunate as we were to do that, it helped in our response time. We've helped provide vaccinations through that and through the rest of our EMS system and to many residents who are willing and who are interested. It's been vital throughout this pandemic. There's been a whole host of accomplishments. We've expanded our trail system. We've improved our recreational sources. We acquired and developed DiCaprio Park. The town did the Western Turnpike Golf Course. We saved all of those beautiful acres from perhaps development, but it's a jewel, recreational source, not only for residents, but people come from adjoining communities to play golf and to enjoy all of that beauty. We've preserved open space. We've expanded our sewer system and helped out the residents of McCownville when they've struggled with certain stormwater issues. The list goes on, and I think that I can continue to help serve the residents. I think I'm concerned. I'm well invested in our community, and I'm a good listener. I think I bring with me an open mind. I don't have any preconceived notions of how certain issues should be resolved. It's about providing an opportunity and a forum for our residents to communicate their concerns. I'm especially proud of supporting and endorsing and making sure that Guilderland hired its first female police chief. That was absolutely seminal, I believe, in our viewpoint of how all jobs, be they town related or elsewise, should be open to all who are qualified. And interestingly, I noted on the first day of our current administration that we now have three members of our town board who are women. And throughout my tenure, we've never had a majority of women on the town board. I think that's phenomenal, and I think that it shows that we in our town are forward looking and that we are concerned about the welfare and the well being of our residents, and that we believe that everyone as an integral part of our town, and to make sure that our town heads in the right direction.
What are your goals going forward for the next 4 years?
But I think the biggest goal is to very generally continue to help improve the quality of life of our residents. And there are so many ways in which you can do that. For example, again, going back to what I said is what I believe is essential and a important hallmark of any good governmental or municipal organization, and that's to have an open and transparent and accessible government. Um, the employees at town hall have consistently been commended. As a public servant, as a member of the town board, I'm often told by residents when they meet with our town clerk or receiver of taxes, with the supervisor, with the planning department, that they are accessible, they are attentive to their questions, that they help and assist them in any way they can. Our highway department is, they're just incredible. Not only are they consistently making sure that our streets are safe and plowed during the winter months, but they're picking up those lawn and refuse bags throughout the summer and the fall. I can't tell you how many people, whether you're walking in a grocery store or you're on the campaign trail or just, being just, walking throughout the town, how much people appreciate the fact that, and they look at those, the calendar of when the highway department's going to stop by and pick up their debris and their fallen limbs and um, their bags of grass. So I think it's important to keep good government operating, and that's to ensure that the people that we employ at the town are of the same quality that we currently have. That's absolutely important. That we continue to improve and expand our recreational sources, our parks, our trailway system. That we must manage smart growth, and we have to balance development. It's a very it's a very interesting, endeavor, because on the one hand, you want to quote expand the tax base to provide, you know, some relief to individuals. But on the other hand, there are sometimes concerns raised where there may be too much development. So what we have in the town of Gilliland is it's basically a quilt of a variety of demographics. We have commercial and retail. We have light industrial. We have townhomes and single family homes and multiple senior housing complexes and apartment complexes. So you have a lot of different divergent viewpoints of how things should be run. And it's important as a member of the town board that you represent as best you can all the residents of the town. You're not going to please everyone all the time, but what's imperative is that you are a good listener and you try to address the concerns of residents. But it's if you have any way of succeeding in doing that, you must have an open line of communication through televised meetings, through an excellent website that we have, by having our budget workshops are open to the public. Every year we conduct those in September and October. We have a very strong ethics law. We have an ethics commission or department that reviews financial disclosures. Um, we must continue to promote vital senior programs and affordable housing for all residents, for seniors. A lot of seniors in our town. We have an aging population, and they love the town of Guilderland. They've resided here for years, if not generations, their families, and they want to continue to live here. And to do so, they want to perhaps transition out of their single family homes and move into senior housing. And we've made a concerted effort to do that, to afford those individuals, seniors, an opportunity to stay in the town, but also to attract perhaps people who aren't necessarily ready for single family homes to move into the town and live in some of our apartment complexes.
Great. So now I'm going to launch into a series of 4 issue questions, and I'm reading a script that's the same for each candidate. So you are probably very familiar with what I'm about to read, but it's just so we have the same background that everybody's hearing.
Sure.
The first issue is planning. Last year, 4 Westmere residents and a gas station owner sued both the town of Guilderland and Pyramid Management Group, successfully stopping the construction of a 222-unit apartment development on Rapp Road and a proposed Costco wholesale store. Should the town have appealed Supreme Court Judge Peter Lynch's decision, or accepted the criticism in his decision, using it to recast the way the town's planning process worked? And how should the town proceed from here? And this question also comes with a second part that's related to planning, and that is the town's master plan dates from 2001. There have also been neighborhood plans done between 2003 and 2016. Is Guilderland's comprehensive plan sufficiently up to date, and do the town board, planning board, and zoning board follow the master plan and neighborhood plans often enough?
Often enough, is that what you said?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, Melissa, I appreciate that question. And I enjoy the opportunity, welcome the opportunity to discuss it. Um, I don't know from a prudent perspective, because one, the first matter that you discussed is currently in litigation. I don't know how much I should delve into it because it's currently in litigation, but I will certainly answer your question as best I can. I think to a certain extent, you have to rely upon individuals and departments who may have more knowledge and information to evaluate questions and to determine your outlook on certain issues. With respect to a decision that was rendered by Supreme Court Judge Lynch, as members of the town board, we were not part of the planning board decision, but we were asked to review whether or not we should appeal that decision. And I think that regardless of whether you are in favor of that project or you're opposed to that project, we as public stewards, as elected officials, must evaluate whether there are sufficient reasons to appeal an adverse decision that was rendered against the town in which we live and the residents for which we serve. The members of the town board consulted with the town attorney in determining whether or not that there was sufficient merit to the decision as to whether or not it should be appealed. And it was upon the recommendation of the town attorney and the legal issues that were um, certainly part of that decision. It was his opinion that the town had sufficient merit, sufficient reason to appeal the decision. And what's interesting is I think that one could find objection or criticism of an individual or perhaps the board at large for appealing a decision that perhaps is viewed as you're pro development or you're pro Costco or you're pro that apartment complex. That's not the way it should be viewed. It should be viewed as to whether or not, when the town is sued, if there's any sufficient reason to appeal that. And we relied heavily upon the advice of the attorney for the town, and it was decided that that decision should in fact be appealed. That doesn't mean that those who vote in favor of appealing a decision are in favor of Costco. It doesn't mean that we're against Costco. What it means is that decisions, if there is any merit to them for appeal, they should be appealed. And that's the choice that was that was the choice that was made by the town board.
Okay. So, on the second part of the question, which has to do with the master plan, and you're familiar with it, having been through this, the
Yes.
whole neighborhood planning process
Yes.
with each separate community. Do you feel that your board, the town board, the planning board, and the zoning board follow those neighborhood plans and the master plan as often as they should?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay.
And that's not to say that the comprehensive plan shouldn't be updated. Planning and zoning and development and the decision as to whether or not uh, certain plans should come to fruition when it comes to development. Those all have to be reviewed. A comprehensive plan and planning is dynamic. It changes over time. But we, through our last comprehensive plan, we invested a great deal of time and energy and effort in a variety of neighborhood uh, plans, and those came about because of our comprehensive plan. Interestingly, the going back to the Costco and the development, the apartment complex, those are allowed and permitted uses in that area. So I think what's important that the planning board and the zoning board and the town board, you have to have a process, and you have to abide by that process. We updated our zoning code years ago. We will be updating our comprehensive plan, but we have also, in the interim, we've dealt with the Capital District Transportation Committee. We've invested time and effort in that. And with the pandemic over the last 14 months, we need public comment and public participation for a comprehensive plan. That's not something that should be viewed in a vacuum. It shouldn't be developed in a vacuum. We need public participation and input. And I think that it was a wise choice, though we were gearing up for review of a comprehensive plan 16 months ago, that's been put on hold over the last 14 months because of the pandemic. But I imagine that we will continue in that vein, and we will continue our efforts to update and revise our code when necessary, and to certainly adopt the principles of our various neighborhood plans. Interestingly, you ask if we abide by them or if we use them as a guidepost. the Westmere Corridor Plan, I believe, envisions something like the development that's being proposed in those areas of Costco and the apartment complex. Certainly doesn't frown upon it in the plan, but that all has to be part of an extensive public participation process.
Okay. The next issue is police reform. To meet the governor's requirement for police reform in the wake of George Floyd's murder, a committee of 14 worked in 4 groups studying policies and training, response and diversion, criminal justice strategies, and racial justice and equity, and came up with 18 recommendations and 34 action items for the Guilderland Police Department. What are the best changes in the plan, and what further reforms, if any, are needed?
I think the most important reform or the most important vision is uh, continued communication and community policing. I think our town already is well versed and experienced in a community policing aspect. You know, we have the National Night Out, and we have a lot of integration and communication between our police department and our residents. But there's always room for improvement. Our police department is, interestingly, um, very well received and well respected, not just within our own town, but through communities throughout the Capital District and beyond. It's amazing, and the residents of our town should be very proud of this fact that when there's an opening in the police department, we have candidates that come from, Saratoga and the city of Albany and other municipalities because our police department is so well regarded. But there's always room for improvement. I'm not, it's interesting how there's always a talk about defunding the police. Um, our police goes through a very vigorous and rigorous certification process. And I think part of that certification process, we could rely upon the fact that, perhaps there's, uh, for the lack of a better term, demerits if you have certain incidents that are not in the best from a public perspective or public integrity perspective. But as it stands right now, we go through a rigorous certification process, and I think that we should continue to maintain very high standards for our police officers.
Great. The third topic is environment. The 2 landfills in Albany County will soon be filled. Guilderland has helped reduce waste by chipping up yard refuse to make usable mulch. Should the town start curbside pickup of food scraps or start a compost center? And what further measures should Guilderland take to help the environment?
Well, I think the town has done a lot already. We sponsor and we encourage the shredding of documents. We have document shredding days and hazardous waste days. Um, we team up in with other municipalities in that regard throughout the county. It would be fantastic if we could expand the number of those days beyond, perhaps 2 a year to more. But it takes a lot of coordination with other municipalities. Um, I think the food the composting, yeah, that's something that we can certainly explore. I think that our highway department and is always very active in the collection of those refuse bags, as I spoke about earlier. And if we can expand that in a way that helps remove more of those, uh, I guess, broken limbs and composting, that would be fantastic. I would encourage that.
Okay. And then the last topic is revaluation. In 2019, after 12 years of not going through a town-wide revaluation, Guilderland did so. After the process was completed, Supervisor Peter Barber said, quote, "The goal was ultimately to more fairly and equitably spread the tax burden so residential property owners wouldn't be subsidizing commercial. We did that." End quote. Since then, the town board has agreed to reduce the assessments for a number of Guilderland's roughly 400 commercial properties. So the question for you is, which property owners in town are paying their fair share, and how often should the town go through revaluation?
I think all the residents are paying their fair share. I think that if a resident or if a commercial property feels as though they are grieved or that their assessment is not fair, they have an opportunity to contest that and to grieve their assessment, so to speak. Um, that is always an open process. If for some reason on the Board of Assessment Review, the decision is not favorable in the minds and in the beliefs of those who are bringing that appeal, they can certainly bring a further appeal. But I believe that you have to evaluate the cost of the town. First of all, we rely upon those independent members of that board to make those decisions. That's not something that the town board reviews. It's not something that the planning board reviews from an individual resident perspective. When it comes to those commercial properties, oftentimes it becomes a battle of experts with respect to the assessment and the valuation of the property. And that can be a very extensive and expensive process. Oftentimes, there's a determination made by our assessor along with the town attorney as to when they may recommend a resolution of of an assessment challenge and when they think that it's worth pursuing in the courts. I think we have to rely upon those who are certainly well versed in those areas, being our town assessor and being the town attorney. And also, we have often engaged or retained lawyers outside of the town, not just the town attorney, to defend actions when uh, the assessment is challenged. Um, there's oftentimes a pressure by the Supreme Court judge to come to some resolution because it can be again a very expensive process. But I think everyone is paying their fair share. I don't think that the residents are assuming an undue burden because certain assessments have been challenged and perhaps settled. There may sometimes be a reduction, but uh, all of those factors are considered on a case by case analysis. And I think it's imprudent to evaluate all cases based on a few principles. You have to look at every single case, look at the comparatives, both on the residential side and also from a commercial side. You have to have a full disclosure of the financial aspects of the case. And we have to rely to a certain extent upon both our town attorney and if necessary, attorneys that we employ outside of the town to evaluate that.
Excellent. So now I'm sure there's some topics that are very important to you we haven't touched on. Are what would be your closing thoughts for the voters that are coming up to this primary?
Well, again, Melissa, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your commitment to the town and affording the residents an opportunity to hear what we as candidates have to say. Again, I'm honored, I'm privileged, I'm humbled to have served the residents of the town. I look forward to the opportunity to continue to do so. Um, I believe that I bring with me a wealth of experience and knowledge, a commitment to our community. I'm invested in the well-being of our residents. Um, it's this is the town of Guilderland is very much similar, I should say, to the place where I was born and raised in central New York. Approximately the same number of residents. And as I said, I didn't grow up in Guilderland, but I've purposely chose to come to Guilderland, to stay in Guilderland, to live in Guilderland. Um, I think we have a fantastic town. I think we've done some tremendous things for the residents. I know that you can't always agree on an approach in which you take for residents, but what you need is a commitment to excellence. You need a commitment to be concerned about the the issues that are important to the residents, to bring with you an open mind, um, a, a level headedness, a professionalism. I've been on the board, and as a practicing attorney, I'm very familiar with people who have differences of opinion. I think it's imperative. I think it's essential that you treat everyone with a great deal of sense of respect and courtesy and professionalism. Um, I think that you need only look at meetings that I've had as a member of the town board or when I was counsel to the planning board. I treat people with a great deal of respect and courtesy and civility. And I think that's important because if whether you agree or disagree with someone, you 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 have to have a very fair and deliberative and honest and candid and respectful discourse and communique. That's the way you find out what people are concerned about. You try to help resolve issues. You try to better uh, the residents' standard of living and quality of living. And I think that we've done that throughout the town, not just this year or last year, but throughout many years. And we pledge to continue that. I pledge to continue that, to do my very best. I've sworn an oath to do my very best and to uphold the New York State Constitution, the United States Constitution. I've done that. I fully intend to continue doing that, and I ask for the support and the trust and the votes of the residents of the town of Gilliland to help me continue to help them.